deaths when he drove his patrol car off of Blythe Ferry Road at Blythe Ferry Landing into the Tennessee River about 10 o'clock that night. So the way we've done this, it took a while, obviously, for the Tennessee Highway Patrol CERT team to assemble their report. We had autopsies conducted. Tennessee Bureau of Investigation helped with in the investigation. My office and a couple of my assistants and investigators helped as well. So there are a number of forensic reports generated. We'll talk about those at the end. But there's going to be a website set up where the media, the public, anybody can access that. Ethan White with Chat Creative. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. But we've also produced about a 12-minute video just to help as an overview of all the information and try to summarize the reports. You have a 13-page written summary report that will be on the website as well. But I think the best thing is to show this video, and then we'll talk about some things and answer some questions. I will let you know that we have just recently, a few minutes ago, finished presenting this to the Meigs County Grand Jury. We were here in regular session with the Meigs County Grand Jury. They meet 3 times a year. This was our first opportunity coming up to do this. This is why it's being released today. Obviously, there's no one to charge with a crime in this case to indict. Both Deputy Leonard and Tabitha Smith died as a result of this incident, so you cannot prosecute Tabitha Smith for whatever charges she was being arrested by Deputy Leonard for, or if you found any criminal wrongdoing on the part of the deputy, he's deceased. This was merely just like I would present any officer involved shooting, whether I'd already made the decision not to charge or not, as a matter of my policy and many of the district attorney policies across the state of Tennessee. They take them before the grand jury. This was an officer involved death, the death of a citizen in custody, so it made sense to present that to the grand jury, and they heard that, and they're discussing it right now. Just if they want to make any comment, they'll release that as part of an addendum to the grand jury report. But for right now, I'd like to go ahead and play the video. As I say, it takes about 12 minutes. You'll hear the original 911 call from the witnesses on the bridge to dispatch interacting with Deputy Leonard, and then Deputy Leonard's last transmission. And then it may be a little strange with me standing here, but me talking there. But this is a way of having this forever with the case file on the website, and it's a good way just to give an overview of the case. We're here on Blythe Ferry Road near Blythe Ferry Landing in the Birchwood community of Meigs County, just to lead into a report about the death of Meigs County Deputy R.J. Leonard and Tabitha Smith, who was in custody, and they're traveling into the river at this location on the night of February 14th of this year. As you'll note, the Highway 60 bridge is over my left shoulder, leading from this side of the river in Meigs County over to Ray County. That's where the call came in about a person running in and out of traffic that R.J. Leonard responded to. Ultimately, he took the individual in custody. We know it was Tabitha Smith. He was returning to the Meigs County Jail with her, going east back on Highway 60, and he turned on Shattuck Road, which ultimately runs into Blythe Ferry Road and leads down here to this ferry landing. Now, he should have taken a right-hand turn on the eastbound end of Blythe Ferry Road to go to Highway 58 and back to the jail. For whatever reasons, darkness, foggy conditions, difficulty with a known prisoner who had alcohol and drug issues, who was homeless, typically was involved in disorderly and even assault on a first responder at one point in their history. So we can only speculate as to that, but there were multiple factors at play here. R.J. Leonard, as you'll know from the report, was maybe not as familiar with this end of the county, and the fact that Blythe Ferry Road actually ends into a ferry landing in the river. So all sorts of factors that come into play that you can decide for yourself and looking at the side. Now, they ended up in the river. The autopsy says they drowned. Tabitha Smith was in the back seat, handcuffed with the windows up. R.J. Leonard was in the driver's seat. Obviously, his driver's side window was down when the car was recovered, and his body was found just feet submerged in the water from where the car was. So take a look at our summary and report, and we hope it's informative.
County 911 location, do you have emergency? We're at the Highway 60 bridge. A man just tried to walk out in front of our vehicle on the highway, right before you cross the bridge to go to Davis.
This was on the Meigs County side, going towards Davis?
Yes. I mean, right before you get to the bridge.
Were you able to tell anything about it, like what kind of clothes he was wearing, anything like that?
Did he even have clothes on?
Yeah. And a gray, jacket or gray hoodie on.
He didn't look like a gray jacket or a gray hoodie.
Go ahead.
I couldn't still say that.
Street or gray?
I don't know how to call it, how to get it either. There, Shannon.
All right, sir, I'll do an off out there to check it out, okay?
All right, thank you. Do it to go, trying to go back?
No, you're fine to keep going, bro.
All right, thank you.
Uh-huh.
All right,
Hey, what's up? Hey, you've been out to Highway 60. Have reports of a male in gray hoodie, appears to be in his 20s to 30s, jumping into traffic.
What you're looking at here is a map of the location between R.J. Leonard's house and the Highway 60 bridge and the Blythes landing scene in southern Meigs County. Our first data point up here, A, is R.J. Leonard's home, where the call came in from dispatch at 9:30 and 56 seconds, and then he actually goes en route at 9:32 and 38 seconds, heads over east to Highway 58, and then you see the data points from the GPS device traveling southward on Highway 58 until he takes a right-hand turn towards the west on Gunstopper Road, cut off the sort of the triangle that he would otherwise have made if he went all the way down to Highway 60. So he takes a couple of back roads over Highway 60 just east of the Birchwood community and proceeds in a northwesterly fashion through Birchwood until he approaches and gets up to data point B, which is on the Highway 60 bridge. There's also a data point C behind there, but he arrives on the arrest scene at 9:47 and 29 seconds.
I contact while halfway across the bridge. It's going to be a female party. Appears to be some sort of drugs.
10-4, can I show you the contact? Go ahead.
You get Appleton Smith, 13189.
Seven gun return on Tabitha M. Smith of Decatur. She is revoked. Clearance out to local.
Okay, so could you send me a picture of that, please?
10-4.
7-1, custody.
Copy, one in custody.
Yeah, I'll be 10:15 and after the house. I have out there just for work, so I'm recording my time.
Good copy, 3215. Out of transport to 2158.
At this point, Deputy Leonard has Tabitha Smith in custody on the Highway 60 bridge. As he starts back and gets up to 12 miles an hour, he radios in that he's headed back with the 10 code indicating that he's headed to the jail at 9:58 and 16 seconds. So he's headed back towards the Birchwood community on Highway 60, and as he passes the Oasis Revival Center, he turns left onto Shadden Road at data point E. From here, he proceeds up Shadden Road to its junction with Blythes Road. As I've tried to describe in the report at this point, it looks like a continuation of Shadden Road, but it's Blythes Road. He should have turned right to proceed east on Blythes Road back towards 58, where he could go up to the jail in Decatur. Instead, he's heading west down this dark 2-lane road and at night, and ends up, for whatever reason or reasons, in the Tennessee River there at the end of the landing. And we have that time as 10:03 and 51 seconds according to his GPS device.
Order.
Last unit, 10 knots.
So they don't keep paying on the regular.
.807, 820 status.
820 is clear. 807.
.807, are you 10-4, and what's your 20? All units, I can't get in by phone either.
The effort to determine what happened to Deputy R.J. Leonard began almost immediately after dispatch was unable to establish contact with him. Local law enforcement and first responders were contacted, and the search began immediately, with surrounding agencies responding as well, along with state, federal law enforcement, and first responders. The command center was set up at the Oasis Center at the intersection of Highway 60 and Shadden Road. It was not until sometime later, through the triangulation of Leonard's cell phone, that we were able to determine his patrol vehicle was in the water off of Blythe Ferry Landing. It took until daylight for divers to go in and hook to the car. Then it took even longer to retrieve it from the river, turn it over, and bring it back up on the landing. The inside of the vehicle was caked with mud and silt. Keep in mind this is a river, and the night before, the gates upstream at Watts Bar Dam had been open, so water was running, which likely contributed to this condition. As you can see from the photos of the vehicle and in the information in the report, the driver's side window was all the way down. The front passenger window was partly down. The windows in the back of the car were partly down as well, but keep in mind there's a cage between the front seat and the back seat and bars that prevent persons in custody from getting out through the windows. Deputy Leonard's body was found in the water outside of the car. We can only speculate as to what measures or efforts he may have taken to attempt to help Tabitha Smith. As I said, the windows were partly down. We do not know if he did that electronically with the window switches, perhaps while the car was sinking into the water, or if it was the force of pulling the car out of the water with a large amount of mud on the inside, sucking or pulling against the windows that caused enough pressure to bring them down. The car was turned upside down in the water. The front of the car was touching the bed of the river, and the back of the car was floating near the top with the trunk open. As I stated at the outset, the autopsy reports state that both Leonard and Smith died as a result of drowning. There was no other trauma. We've already mentioned the blood test results that showed Tabitha Smith with methamphetamine and THC in her system, but the cause of death was drowning, not due to any drug intoxication. It is hard to even imagine the last few minutes of life that both Leonard and Smith endured in that water. We have tried to use all investigative means to get to the answers to know how this tragedy occurred. Deputy Leonard's phone and his personal GPS device provide the most concrete information. Still, we can only speculate as to the factors that caused him to drive into the river. It appears to be a combination of factors that came together and led to this horrific accident was fatal to both Deputy Leonard and Tabitha Smith. The reports are available on the website created for this purpose by Chat Creative. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation files are confidential by state statute. However, our reports, the THP CERT report, and the autopsies are part of the material on the website. My office does not have any more material or records. It is all on the website. I encourage you to please respect the victims and their families in your use and treatment of this material. The material does constitute public records, but common decency should dictate your use of the material, especially photos that may be sensitive in nature.
Ethan, you want to tell them about the website and give them the address again and whatever else, and answer any questions about that?
Yes, my name is Ethan White with Chat Creative. We work with the Tennessee District Attorney General's Conference to provide public relations and communication support, and when needed, we support the 32 elected DAs in the state. General Johnson requested that we assist him by creating a website where we could host all of the reports. That website is tennesseeda.org/district-9/press. tennesseeda.org/district-9/press. And on that website, you'll find the preliminary investigative report, the summary of report, the THP CERT report, and the report of forensic findings. And later this afternoon, this video will be uploaded there as well. If you have any issues with that website, I've handed you guys my card with my email, and it's ethan@chatwith2tscreative.com.
Thank you. I think the THP report's 176 pages. The forensic report that Courtney Duggar generated is 50 pages. Summary's 13 pages, and there's probably other exhibits on there as well. Are there any questions? Yes, ma'am.
So on the last, or the second really page, the conclusion and community impact, it says that this is a reminder of critical need for better training, resource, and safety measures. What has now been taking place to make sure something like this may not happen again?
Well, as part of the summary report, you hear how I talk about the dearth of financial resources and tax base in Meigs County. So I would note that they still don't have in-car cameras. They still don't have body cameras. They still do not have GPS navigation in any of the vehicles, to my understanding. It should be noted that Deputy Leonard was in a 2010 Crown Victoria, which was a pool car, or a car kind of already been used a lot and set aside. As you could hear from the transmission, the odometer and speedometer were not working. So all of that is as a result of lack of resources. They had 8 full-time deputies at the time, but they had 11 positions available. But that goes to how difficult it's been, especially since COVID and with the whole defund the police movement, to hire people that want to be law enforcement officers to begin with, and then to be able to provide them the pay and the benefits, much less paying to send them to the academies to get certified that they need. So Meigs County is really in a difficult situation here, to my estimation. So given the lack of, when you have open positions, it's hard to dedicate field training officers as well. Deputy Leonard was sworn in early November of 2023, and then immediately sent to the Cleveland State Academy, where he graduated on December 1st. And in looking at his personnel file, he had good scores, even on driving. I think it was a 95, 96, 97, something of that nature, if I'm remembering correctly. So that is probably largely the extent of his training. I talk about in the report, he and his wife and family, he has 5 children. They were from the state of New York. He grew up in New York. He only recently moved here in 2022. I think his father-in-law has a HVAC, a heat and air business that he was working at, and decided he wanted to become a law enforcement officer, and signed up and went to the academy. So he was only on duty a short period of time, even though he lived in the southern end of the county. We're not sure how familiar he was with the roadway down there, but kind of like I explained, a lot of people looking at this situation, and I've already seen some of the comments from when it first happened, how in the world does a public road run directly into the river without some sort of gate or mechanism to keep that from happening? Keep in mind that historically, especially in this area of East Tennessee along the Tennessee River and other larger areas, For a long time, ferries were the only way to get across from one side of the river to the other. In fact, the Highway 60 bridge was only completed in 1994. And so if you wanted to get across the river from Meigs County to Ray County or from there to here, you had to take Blythe Ferry. In your exhibit, you see a picture of Blythe Ferry with operating with a truck on it and the Highway 60 bridge newly constructed in the background. So of the 13,000 people in Meigs County, probably before COVID, 12,900 of them have grown up here their entire lives. Generational families that have been here for years that realize that these ferries are there, they've been there. They utilize them now for boat landings to put ski boats, fishing boats in and out, to personal watercraft to swim and fish. So this is a situation that's probably unique to East Tennessee and definitely Meigs County, because if you go to East Ferry, Armstrong Ferry, Old Washington Ferry, you're going to see exactly the same thing almost. In fact, when they've tried to close off the ferries in the past, citizens, people in the neighborhood have resisted that from the county commission. So in answer to your question, in many ways, Meigs County is still the same. The Meigs County Sheriff's Department is still the same today as it was on February 14th, and there's various reasons for that. So I know the Sheriff's Department is in a difficult spot. They're mourning over the loss of Deputy Leonard and what this has done for the morale of their department, and so it's just a difficult situation still today.
And you touched on it a little bit here on the packet. You just talked about some of the contributing factors leading into this tragic accident.
Well, like I say, he's probably not familiar with the area, especially at night. As was noted with several of us when we were in grand jury talking about just how foggy it was that late evening. You have a person in custody. She was already reported as running out in front of traffic. When he pulled up, he says she appears to be on some kind of drugs. We know that she had been homeless and living in the area. We know her arrest history involving a great person at one time, but like many people, fell into the grip of drugs and maybe probably some mental health issues that led to her being in the condition she was in that night and the status she was in that night, and whatever reason she was out and about on the bridge. There's a communication from one of the deputies that's in the report about, hey, she's always on meth. We know in court, from having her in court, and everybody knows that she's a difficult person to get into custody and deal with once arrested. So that's the nature of the person that's in the back of that car as he's driving along. Is she asleep? Was she totally calm? She was handcuffed per policy with handcuffs behind her back, so she probably wasn't too happy about being taken into custody. He may have caused anxiety for him wanting to hurry to the jail. Poor cell phone service in the area, using a GPS device or a phone device to try to navigate his way back. You saw he went back roads coming over. He was planning, it appears, to go a different set of back roads on the way back to 58 to cut off that triangle I was talking about to try to get back to the jail even quicker. So what role that played, the fog, you can see in the reports his average speed from where he turned on Shadden Road to before he hit the water was 42. We know from the GPS device that he was up to 51, 56. We're getting data points pulled every 6 seconds that give speed. So the last three, I think, were 51, 56, and 44. I may have that backwards. It may have been 56, 51, 44. But we think he hit the water somewhere around 44 miles per hour or a little bit less. The next data point shows him at 1.6. That's the car just gently moving through the water as its momentum's carrying it forward, and it's beginning to sink. So all of those things happen. You saw the pictures, you saw the mud in the car, you saw the issues with the windows. Only speculating what happened. He got out of the vehicle, obviously. His door was closed. All the doors were closed. His seatbelt was off. It was not cut. We don't know if he had his seatbelt on or if he was able to take it off. The airbags did not deploy because it wasn't like a sudden stop hitting a brick wall or anything. It was going into the water, so the airbags, we know from the device, did not go off. But he's outside the vehicle. He's got on his tactical vest. His phone is all the way back in his pocket and in lock mode on his vest. He has heavy boots on. He has a gun belt on. So it's foggy. He's in the water. You know, he says water. He doesn't say, I'm in the river. He doesn't say, I went off this. He just says, all he knows is he's in the water and it's foggy. What's going through his mind at that point? And he's got all this weight on him. He has somebody in the back of the vehicle. The sergeant with CERT did say in his examination of the driver's side back window that window was damaged. It was part way down as the other one was down. But keep in mind, there's a cage between the front seat and the back seat, but there's also bars over those windows to prevent anybody in custody from getting out. And the doors are locked from where she can't open them, and she was handcuffed, as you'll remember. So like I say, it had to be a horrific situation for her, and to what extent he was trying to get her out. Maybe he was the one that damaged that window in the process. We'll never know. I'd like to think it was, but we'll never know.
There's lawsuits pending right now from her family on behalf of this incident. Can you tell us about any communication that you've had with her family amid your investigation leading up to now?
I think TBI and did some of those interviews. Of course, those are confidential by statute. It was my understanding that maybe the mother had not seen her in quite some time. She has children. I don't know really the status. I know there's a boyfriend that may have been a husband, may still be married. I know there are lawyers in the room here that are representing the parties to those federal lawsuits. I know that there's an issue relative to one of those plaintiffs that's being argued in federal court. So that's the best I can tell you at this point.
Do we know if Deputy Leonard was texting and driving? I know that he said his phone was in his pocket, but...
Right. There was a text communication with the other deputy. The other deputy either called him on the radio or texted him and said, he said when he heard him say in custody and who she was, that deputy texted or messaged him in some fashion and said, she's always on high on meth or whatever, something, a cautionary thing. And there was some response back. The only other text message that I'm aware of without reviewing it is 46 seconds before he hit the water, he texted his wife, arrest. Keep in mind, this was Valentine's Day. I talk about in the summary report how you only have 2 deputies, one on patrol in the north, Leonard on patrol in the south. If you've driven here, there's not much place to eat. It's a very rural county. So Sheriff Jackie Melton allows them, while they're on these long shifts covering areas, to go home, get something to eat, check on their kids. He has 5 kids. It's Valentine's Day night, checking on his wife. He gets a call, leaves at 9:32. Hey, I've got this call. I can just imagine saying, I'll let you know what's going on or when I'll be back. And so he texts the single word arrest. We don't know if he manually, digitally took the phone out and did that, if he said voice spoke, he didn't have Bluetooth, and just said arrest. That goes through 46 seconds before he hits the water. She responds, and it's outlined in here, nice, but it's spelled capital N-O-I-C-E. And I talked to her about that, and she said that noise, we're from New York, that's kind of the way we say it, or younger generation, whatever, I don't know. But those were the 2 text messages. That one was about, I have to look at the timeline. It was delivered from his phone from her phone, but before it shows as being received on his phone. He was clearly already in the water, so never saw or read that because his phone was still in there in lock mode. His phone, he was out of the water. He was transported for the autopsy to the Knox County Regional Forensic Center. His phone travels with him the whole way. They are at the autopsy. They're the ones that remove it, inventory it, and that's where we find out about the phone. THP handles that part, downloads, extracts from that phone. The phone stays powered up for almost 2 days, a little less than 2 days. And so you can actually, those coordinates we tracked on the map, you can follow him all the way to Knox County, to the Forensic Center, and all the way back to the funeral home before his phone dies. So we have a lot of good information from there. We have a lot of good information from the GPS device that was found in the car that Courtney and Chanel from my office learned about from talking to the wife that night. You could see all the mud. So it was like 3 weeks before, when the car was finally cleaned out and whatnot, they found that device, and it took several weeks, months, using cleaner, getting a separate brand new Garmin device to cannibalize parts from that to make that one work. to extract all the data. So the best data we have is the phone and the GPS, and then it's nice to have all the radio transmission to put everything together.
And what was the text he texted his wife again? Sorry?
Arrest, the single word arrest. And we talked to her about this. We met with her a couple times, and I said, what's going on there? I'm hearing, well, it's his first arrest. He's bragging. One of the conspiracy theories you see on the social media. It's not. He's telling me it's an actual arrest, indicating to me that, it's going to be a while before I get home, Valentine's Day night. So don't wait up for me or whatever. That was her explanation of all that. And you see, we provided you a list of his arrests. He had multiple arrests, but none of which had come to court until actually that Thursday morning. His cases were showing up here in court.
And so just to confirm, the overall, I guess, conclusion is that there was no one really at fault in this incident?
Yeah, I mean, he's the driver of the car, of course. But, like I say, not knowing, we'll never know. Maybe cruel speculation to attribute any of it to her distracting him. It's dark. If you go down that road, especially at night, there are no lights, no houses as you approach that area. I talk about the State Historical Center with the Trail of Tears being there, but there's not really a lot in the way of lighting there. There's a map in the exhibit that y'all were provided that shows what safety measures were there in the way of rumble strips, signage. I know on one of the stop signs, the one change I saw, somebody's painted a white arrow under the stop to draw attention to it, I guess, when I was down there the other day trying to remember what was there. I know CERT used Google Earth or Google Maps or whatever to see what was there prior to and, marked all that versus what may be out there right now. But the video I shot trying to explain, here's the way that curve looks was fresh. That was like last week. Just to, me trying to describe it in words is not as good as giving you all a visual. Like, look, it looks like the same road I'm going on. I don't know I should turn right there. In my mind, some other people may see it differently, but that's really what I think. It was just a horrible mistake based on the factors of the night, the fog, the person in the back, and trying to use a phone or GPS device for navigation. And if you've been down there, we were down there the other day. Courtney had an Android. Chanel and I had iPhones. I had Verizon. One of them had US Cellular. You don't have any bars down there at the ferry landing. And so, maybe back it up. There may be a little more service coming around that curve, but, is the GPS really keeping up with your actual spot on the ground where you need to turn? And if he's distracted at all, turn around, you miss it at 40 to 55 miles an hour, you're by it. So, but that's the best explanation. It's like I say, it's all speculation. But we did, and like in talking with the sergeant with CERT, there's nothing nefarious going on. I may have mentioned it already. The rumors like someone hit him from behind because the hood was open, and like what were they doing, following him the whole time and hitting him that close? I mean, it just doesn't make sense. There's a lot of conspiracy theories that don't make sense given when you know the facts of the case. So.
And did you say that was his first arrest? I'm sorry.
No, there was not. Like I say, there's an exhibit there. I don't know how many arrests. He did some where he went out and picked up people on warrants and then other arrests as well. But we used the first and last initial of the arrestee's name, but we wanted to provide that because there was some misinformation about that first night that might have been his first arrest. But we went back and looked and it wasn't.
It's probably in the 13 pages, but how long, how many days, I guess, did the investigation take, to prepare this report,
From February 14th to today. We were literally working on the video yesterday and this morning just to try to, like I say, be more demonstrative with what we had to produce instead of getting up here and just trying to describe it and talk about it.
And with all of these factors, at the end of the day, 2 lives were lost.
Right.
So does this at the very least kind of start the conversation of what can be done to maybe barricade, protect, other people from doing the same? You mentioned, it used to be a thing for ferries to come, but there are other ways nowadays to cross over or travel. So is that
Right.
maybe a conversation now?
I'm sure that will be because Meigs County is being sued by multiple parties, and those are the allegations that are going to be made that they should have done more to provide warning measures, barriers, or whatnot. I'll note the conversation I had when raised that myself. Well, we tried to do it at this other location, but the people there who vote for the county commissioners representing that area didn't want it done because they wanted easy access to leave it open to carry on with all the recreational activities that are the benefit of it, of having it open and not having it closed, at sunset when you might still be bringing a boat in off the water or something like that. I can see those being issues, knowing the nature of Meigs County and how they like living next to the river in a rural community. Anything else?
Can you talk about the response from the various different law enforcement agencies that helped with the investigation?
Sure. If I tried to name them all, I would leave some out. I know there were state and federal agencies there. People from my office were there. Obviously, the Meigs County Sheriff's Department and Decatur Police. And in a situation like that, those deputies and officers want to help, but they're, especially when they find out he's, where he is, they're in a situation of grief. So other people come to the aid. I know the surrounding sheriffs, Sheriff from Hamilton County, Polk County, the Chief Deputy Sheriff from Monroe County were all there. A lot of law enforcement agencies, state HSI, federal HSI, FBI helped with the triangulation, the CAST team, once we got the phone data from the wife, the information, and got the proper subpoenas to get his phone data. FBI went to work on that with a federal Homeland Security officer that works with our DTF and our DTF director. They were able to triangulate and move TWRA and their boat up from underneath the bridge where we thought someone may have, caused him to stop and then either did something harmful, threw him over the bridge, or kidnapped him in his car. Those were the working theories to begin with. But so many people played a role, first responders. The Oasis Center provided that location for a command center, provided food and snacks. So there were a lot of people. And then you had fishermen with sonar that had better sonar than even TWRA. We had dive teams from Monroe County and from Hamilton County, and then the wrecker or the tow truck that came in, and ultimately, as you saw, pulling it out of the water, and you could see the amount of people standing around at the time in some of those pictures. But yes, a lot of people came to provide help and aid. Anything else? Good deal. Appreciate it. Thank you for being here.